kids, where are you? It's time for all the art to tell stories.
Once upon a time, in a quaint little village, there lived a tailor and his 3 sons. The family had a goat, whose milk was so beneficial that they took great care to feed it well. The tasks of grazing and caring for the goat were shared among the brothers, each taking their turn. One sunny day, it was the eldest son's responsibility to take the goat out to graze. He found a lush, green meadow in the churchyard and let the goat nibble to its heart's content until the golden sun began to set. "Are you full, dear goat?" the boy asked, coaxing the goat back home. Upon their return, the tailor asked, "Is the goat well fed?" "Oh yes, it won't even chew a straw," replied the eldest, confident of a job well done. However, when the tailor questioned the goat directly, the deceitful goat bleated, "Starving, starving I am. Didn't see a blade, jumped across streams, found nothing. Bah, bah." The tailor, in a huff of disbelief, yelled at his eldest son and chased him away. The next day, the middle son took the goat to the garden's edge, where fresh, dewy grass grew aplenty. The goat nibbled and frolicked all day. "Are you satisfied, dear goat?" the middle son asked, ready to head home. "Full to bursting, not a leaf more," the goat claimed. "Is she full?" asked the tailor upon their return, and once again the son relayed the goat's assurances. Yet, with the tailor's gentle prompts, the goat repeated its woe of hunger. Furious, the tailor scolded the middle son out of the house too. The tailor asked if the goat was satisfied. Again, deceit followed, as the goat lamented its hunger. Angered fiercely, the tailor drove his last son from his home. Left with only his beloved goat, the tailor decided to oversee its feeding personally. He found an abundant field and let it graze comfortably till night. "Are you full now, tricky goat?" he inquired. But the mischievous goat again wailed of starvation. Realizing his mistake, the tailor was filled with regret for suspecting his sons. "That's enough of your tricks, you old goat," he decided, angry beyond all control. He shaved the goat's head bald to mark its mischief. Meanwhile, the sons, each skilled with magical gifts from their masters, thought of returning home with blessings that could restore prosperity to their father. The eldest had a miraculous table that produced a feast on command. The middle, a donkey that produced gold, and the youngest, a magic stick that ensured justice. With the magic stick's power, the youngest brother finally retrieved their stolen treasures from a deceitful innkeeper who had tricked his brothers. Back home, with full rejoicing, they invited neighbors and family to partake in the feasts and riches generously offered by the gifts they'd acquired. As for the goat, its mischief had left it bald, and it trotted off, embarrassed, towards a fox's den. The sly fox, upon seeing the glowing eyes within its den, was too scared to enter, believing a fearsome beast lay within. The fox ran into a bear, and in its terror shared the fearful tale. Together, they approached the den, but the bear too was frightened by the shining eyes. Finally, a humble bee buzzed upon the scene. Hearing the tale of woe, it decided to intervene. The little bee stung the goat on its bald head. With a startled bleat, the goat dashed from the den, never to be seen again. And so the tailor and his sons lived a happy life, while the goat, who knows where it might be now? Once upon a time, there was a poor woodcutter and his wife who, despite being very kind, didn't have children. One evening, as the woodcutter sat by the fireplace in their small cottage pondering, his wife sat beside him spinning yarn. The woodcutter sighed and said, "It feels so lonely here without the sound of children's laughter and joy." "You're right," his wife agreed, with a sigh as she continued to spin the wheel. "It would be a blessing if we even had just one child. Even if the child is as small as a thumb, we would cherish and love him with all our hearts." After some time, the good woman's wish was granted. Just as she'd hoped, she gave birth to a little boy. Although healthy and strong, he was no bigger than a thumb. Still, they were overjoyed and said, "Wonderful. No matter how small he is, our dream has come true. We will care for him with all our love and affection." For his size, they named him Tom Thumb. Despite feeding him well, Tom didn't grow any bigger. His eyes sparkled with intelligence and energy, and soon he proved to be a clever little fellow, with everything he did pleasing his parents greatly. One day, as the woodcutter prepared to go chopping wood, he said, "I wish I had someone who could help me drive the cart to the forest to make the work faster." "Hey, Dad!" Tom shouted. "Let me help! I can get the cart to the forest exactly as you want." The woodcutter laughed and said, "How can that be? You can't even reach the reins." Tom reassured him. "No problem, Dad. Just let Mom harness the horse, and I'll sit in the horse's ear and tell it which way to go." Finally, the father agreed. "All right, let's give it a try." And so, he went on ahead. When it was time, the mother harnessed the horse to the cart and placed Tom in the horse's ear. Once Tom was settled, he began to command the horse, "Giddy up and whoa" to stop. Thus, the cart rolled on purposefully towards the forest. Meanwhile, two strangers passed by and saw the cart moving by itself, with a voice commanding but no driver visible. One said, "What a wonder! The cart seems to move on its own. Let's follow it and see where it leads." Curious, they followed the cart and eventually reached where the woodcutter was working. Tom cried out, "Dad, come see. I brought the cart just as promised. Please get me down." His father took hold of the horse and lifted Tom from its ear, placing him on a straw pile where Tom cheerfully sat. The strangers, amazed at what they had just seen, thought he would make them rich if they could show him off in towns around. So they approached his father and asked if they could buy the little fellow. "He will do better with us," they assured. But the father replied, "My dear child is worth more than all the silver and gold in the world." Hearing of their intentions, Tom climbed up his father's coat to his shoulder and whispered in his ear, "Dad, take the money and let them take me. I'll be back to you very soon." Reluctantly, his father finally agreed, selling Tom for a piece of gold. One of the strangers asked Tom, "Where would you like to sit?" "Oh, just put me on the brim of your hat. It would be like a nice little balcony for me to survey the countryside." They obliged, and Tom waved goodbye to his father before leaving with the strangers. By evening, Tom felt sleepy and asked to be let down. One of them placed Tom on a clump of earth by the field side. Tom quickly made his way through the furrows and crawled into an old mouse hole. "Good night, good sirs. I've taken my leave. Next time you better watch where I pop out," Tom cheerfully called out. The strangers frantically tried to poke him out with sticks, but all in vain. When night fell completely, they eventually gave up, leaving despondently. After ensuring they were truly gone, Tom emerged from his hiding spot. Yet, it was too dark, and he muttered to himself, "Walking across the fields is dangerous in this darkness. I might fall and break my neck." Luckily, he found an empty snail shell and said joyfully, "Thank heavens! I can sleep safely here." And with that, he crawled in. Just as he was about to sleep, he overheard two men plotting nearby. "How can we steal jewels and gold from the rich man's home?" Tom immediately shouted out, "I know how!" Startled, the thieves strained to hear where the voice was coming from. Tom repeated, "Take me with you, and I'll show you how to get the goods." They searched until they found him. "What can you do, little rascal?" the thieves asked, holding him in their hands. "I can squeeze through the bars of the iron gate, and I'll toss out the wealth you desire," Tom offered. They agreed, and off they went. When they reached the rich man's house, Tom slipped through the window bars into the home and started yelling, "Would you like to take everything?" The thieves, alarmed, hushed Tom. "Shh! Speak softly. You'll wake the whole house." Instead, Tom carried on louder. "How much do you want? Shall I toss it all?" This time, the cook sleeping in the next room awakened, straining her ears to hear. Realizing how loud he was, and further startled by Tom's voice again, the thieves fled. However, they returned irritated and determined to have a second try, saying, "This little guy's making fools out of us. Let's not be so easily scared." Once upon a time, there was a cunning old fox who wanted to know if his wife was truly devoted to him. So one day, he lay stiffly beneath a bench, pretending to be dead, resembling a dead mouse. Mrs. Fox entered her room and shut the door, while her maid, Miss Cat, sat by the kitchen stove preparing a meal. News of the old fox's death soon spread, and a young fox eventually came knocking on the door. The young fox asked Miss Cat if she was sleeping or just whiling away time. Miss Cat replied she was preparing some fine white wine and invited him for lunch, but he declined, asking about Mrs. Fox. Miss Cat told the young fox that Mrs. Fox was lamenting her misfortune with tears in her eyes because Mr. Fox had died. The young fox proposed to Mrs. Fox through Miss Cat. Miss Cat informed Mrs. Fox about the suitor. Mrs. Fox asked if he had 9 tails, as she would only accept a suitor with 9 tails. The young fox had only 1 tail, so Mrs. Fox rejected him. Several more foxes came courting, but they all faced rejection for not having 9 tails. Finally, a fox with 9 tails arrived, and Mrs. Fox was eager to marry him. Mrs. Fox instructed Miss Cat to open the windows and doors, invite friends for the wedding, and throw the old fox out. But the old fox sprang up, chased everyone out, and later truly passed away. A wolf came to pay respects, asking Miss Cat about Mrs. Fox. Miss Cat said Mrs. Fox was crying sorrowfully because Mr. Fox had passed away. The wolf proposed to Mrs. Fox through Miss Cat. Miss Cat went to Mrs. Fox to relay the wolf's proposal. Mrs. Fox asked if the wolf had red feet and a sharp snout. Upon learning he did not, she rejected him. A dog, goat, bear, and lion each came to propose, but were rejected for not having the traits of the old fox. Finally, a handsome young fox arrived, meeting Mrs. Fox's criteria. Mrs. Fox asked if the young fox had 4 red feet and a sharp snout. Miss Cat confirmed he did. Mrs. Fox decided to marry him, instructing Miss Cat to tidy up and prepare for the wedding. A grand wedding was held, with joyous bells ringing. Friends and relatives sang, danced, and celebrated. The festivities were so lively that perhaps they are still dancing to this very day. Once upon a time, there were 12 lazy servants who did nothing during the day and refused to work at night. They would lie on the grass and boast about each one's exceptional laziness. The first one said, "Your laziness can't compare to mine. I have my own ways. I focus on preserving my body. I eat a lot and drink even more. After each meal, I take a little break. And when hunger strikes again, the food tastes even better. Getting up early is not for me. Come noon, I've already found a place for my nap. When the master calls, I pretend not to hear. If he calls again, I wait a bit before slowly standing and walking over. This way of life is just fine by me." The second one said, "I take care of a horse, but I keep the bit in its mouth and don't bother feeding it unless I'm in the mood. If the master asks, I simply say it has been fed. Meanwhile, I sleep 4 hours in the oats. Upon waking, I kick the horse a bit as if to groom it. The less I do, the better, as even this seems too much work." The third one said, "Why work oneself to exhaustion? There are no benefits. I simply lie in the sun and sleep. Even when it starts raining, I don't bother moving. I'll let the rain fall in God's name. Once the downpour grew so strong, it tore my hair off and left a wound, but a plaster took care of it. I've had several such wounds already." The fourth one said, "If they want me to work, I first waste an hour wandering to gather energy and then slowly ask if anyone will help. If someone does the bulk of the work for me, I'll only watch. Still, that's too much." The fifth one said, "What's there to brag about? Imagine mucking the stables and loading it on a cart. I take my time, and if the rake catches anything, I hold it in the air for a quarter hour before loading it. If I manage a single cartload a day, that's plenty. I'm not about to work myself to the bone." The sixth one said, "Shameless. I'm not afraid of hard work. I haven't removed my clothes in 3 weeks. Shoes? Who cares if they fall off? It doesn't matter. When climbing stairs, I count the steps left to know where to sit down." The seventh one said, "No big deal here. My master keeps an eye on me working, but he's rarely home. I'm slower than a worm and need 4 strong men to move me onward. When I fall asleep, no one can wake me. And if they want me back, they'll have to carry me." The eighth one said, "The only lively man without doubt. Should a pebble lie in my path, I won't lift my leg to step over it. I'll lie down right there. If my clothes get wet or muddy, I remain lying until the sun dries them up. At most, I roll over to get more sun. The ninth one said, "Great idea. A loaf was near me today, but I was too lazy to reach it and nearly starved. A jar sat by my side, but it seemed too big and heavy. I preferred hunger and thirst over the effort to move, laying straight as a staff all day." The 10th one said, "Laziness got me. I broke a leg and my other calf is swollen. I lay in the road stretching straight. A cart came by and rolled over both legs, but I could have pulled them back. I failed to hear the cart approaching while mosquitoes buzzed in my ears, crawling in my nose and out my mouth. Who bothers to shoo them off?" The 11th one said, "I quit yesterday. I had no interest in hauling heavy books for the master, something never ending. Truth is, he fired me since his clothes were moth-eaten. I left them in dust. That's how it went." The 12th one said, "Today I was driving a cart in the countryside. I fashioned a bed there and took a cozy nap. Waking, the reins slipped from my hands, nearly causing the detach of horses from the shafts and losing all harnesses, collars, bridles, and bits. The cart sank into a mud pit, but I just went back to sleep. Only when the master came and pulled it out did I wake. Had he not, I'd still be lying there, comfortably asleep." Once upon a time, there was a miller who had a beautiful daughter. As she grew older, he thought to himself, "If a suitable man comes along to marry her, I'll happily give her away in marriage, so she may have a good future." Not long after, a suitor came to call. He appeared wealthy, and his demeanor was impeccable. The miller found no fault with him, and agreed to give him his daughter's hand in marriage. However, the daughter did not feel the love for him that a bride should feel for her groom. Over time, whenever she saw or thought of him, her heart would tremble with fear. One day, he said to her, "You are my betrothed. Why haven't you come to visit my home?" The girl replied, "I don't know where you live." Her fiancé said, "My home is in the thick forest. You must come next Sunday. I shall place ashes along the path so you can find your way to my house." Though she did not wish to go, she could find no excuse. So next Sunday she set out. As she reached the forest edge, she took 2 pocketfuls of peas and lentils and began to walk the ash-marked path, leaving a trail of peas on one side and lentils on the other, with every step she took. It took her the whole day before she arrived at a gloomy house in the forest. Once inside, she found the house eerily silent and empty. Feeling a wave of fear, suddenly she heard a voice. "Turn back, beautiful bride. Return to your own kind." Looking up, she saw a birdcage hanging over the door with a little bird inside. The bird flapped its wings and repeated its warning. "Turn back, beautiful bride. Return to your own kind. Escape this robber's den. Flee from here to your home again." The old woman hid the girl behind a large barrel, admonishing her, "Don't make a sound. Once the robbers sleep, we'll flee. I've long wanted to leave myself." Not long after hiding, the robbers returned, dragging another girl along with them. Despite her cries and attempts to resist, they ignored her, forcing 3 goblets of wine down her throat, 1 white, 1 red, and 1 yellow. She fell dead upon drinking them. The girl, hidden behind, began to fear that she was next. Her so-called groom approached the corpse to retrieve a golden ring from her finger. Struggling in his attempt, the ring slipped, flinging into the air, and landed behind the barrel onto her dress. Though he lit a lantern to search for it, he could not find it. One of the robbers said, "Did you check behind the barrel?" The old woman quickly interjected, "Oh, eat your supper already. The ring will not run away. There's time to search tomorrow." Convinced, they let it be and ate heartily. The old woman then added a sleeping draught to their drink. Once asleep with thunderous snores, the girl cautiously emerged, treading carefully over the sprawled bodies, thankfully reaching safety. With the woman by her side, they climbed the stairs and fled from the den of murderers. By then, the ashes along the path had been blown away by the wind, but the peas and lentils had taken root, sprouting to guide them home by moonlight. Together, they walked one step at a time, finally making it back to the mill the next morning, where the girl tearfully recounted her tale to her father. The wedding day arrived quickly. The groom came, and the miller invited friends and family. A guest suggested everyone share a story. When it was the bride's turn, the groom encouraged her to speak. "Very well," she agreed. "I will share a dream I had," describing everything that had transpired in the forest. "I dreamed of walking through a forest until I came to an eerie house. A small bird warned me from a cage. 'Turn back, beautiful bride. Return to your own kind. Escape this robber's den. Flee from here to your home again.' My dear, it was a dream. Inside, I met an old woman who helped me hide just before the robbers arrived, dragging another girl. They forced upon her 3 wines and she died after. My dear, it was a dream. A rogue spotted her golden ring and attempted to take it. It flew behind where I hid. Here is that ring." She presented the ring. The robber groom, recognizing it, turned pale and rose to flee, but the guests quickly apprehended him. He and his band of marauders met their fitting end in court, receiving the just punishment for their crimes. If you like our stories, please like, subscribe, and turn on the little bell so you won't miss exciting stories every day. You are also welcome to share it with family and friends to listen to the story together. Love you.